Hello, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. The topic of today's video is why your energy triggers people. And so first I'm going to be reading an excerpt from Man and His Symbols, edited by Carl G. Jung, and the chapter I'll be reading from is The Process of Individuation by Mary Louise von Franz. So in this passage, she's talking about shadow, and the Jungian concept of the shadow is that as a child, we're taught by our culture, our parents, our caregivers, all these things that are wrong, bad, gross, or evil, and we repress these into the shadow. Then as an adult, when we see these traits expressed by other people, we project our shadow onto them. And then, you can criticize another person, but really what you're criticizing are these traits in yourself that you've been taught are wrong. And at the same time, anyone can become possessed by shadow. And so when someone acts out in a way where it's not in accordance with what their conscious mind would say is like moral or right, this is because they've been possessed by their shadow. And some people can become so possessed by it that it seems as if they are a wholly evil person. And it's because it's important to look at the shadow, but to not stare into it. All right, so let's get into the passage. The shadow does not consist only of omissions. It shows up just as often in an impulsive or inadvertent act. Before one has time to think, the evil remark pops out, the plot is hatched, the wrong decision is made, and one is confronted with results that were never intended or consciously wanted. Furthermore, the shadow is exposed to collective infections to a much greater extent than is the conscious personality. When a man is alone, for instance, he feels relatively all right. But as soon as the others do dark, primitive things, he begins to fear that if he doesn't join in, he'll be considered a fool. Thus, he gives way to impulses that do not really belong to him at all. It is particularly in contacts with people of the same sex that one stumbles over both one's shadow and those of other people. Although we do see the shadow in a person of the opposite sex, we are usually much less annoyed by it and can more easily pardon it. Alright, so why your energy triggers people? Well, the reason is every light casts a shadow. And why you might be triggering people when you think that you're acting in, a rather just, moral, kind way, and maybe you even have this sort of bubbly personality, but people just seem so offended by your mere presence. It's because they see their shadow in you. In the things that you are saying, it triggers something in their shadow. Like, so for a very concrete example, okay, you're someone who has gotten quite far on your healing journey, so you might say something like, I deserve to be happy. And, all your actions align with that. The way you talk about yourself is in the sense of, I deserve to be happy. Now, someone who hasn't done this work and might be ruled by their own shadow a little bit has this mental schema of, I don't deserve to be happy. Whether it's because of childhood trauma, because of my gender, because of my appearance, I don't deserve to be happy. So when they see you acting in a way that aligns with your mental schema, which is that, I deserve to be happy, like, I'm not going to wallow in pity and I'm going to live my life. They get so triggered because they think, like, why does she deserve to be happy? Like, why don't I get to be happy? And it's because they haven't gotten to this point where, like, they do deserve to be happy, but they haven't put the work in to really heal this mental schema that they're stuck in. And another reason why you might trigger people is because you make them conscious of things that they know on one level are true, but because they've been so indoctrinated by culture, by their parents, they just refuse to act in accordance with it. So like when people are really stuck in this cycle of like self-sabotage or just like laziness, to really shake people and say, like, your life is in your hands. You can choose how to live each day. Like, no one is forcing you to just, do drugs and alcohol and, like, sit in your room and, like, mope around and just, like, just wallow in self-pity. Like, if you wanted to, you could pick up that pen right now and, fulfill your unrealized dream of being a writer. You could go out into your community and you could make contacts with people who are going to help you in your career. Like, you don't just have to continue in the cycle that you've been doing. And because this shakes people and they know that this is true, they immediately just reject this idea because, their mind can't process it. It's like, what do you mean I can just, like, realize this dream that I've been suppressing for all these years? Like, no, I have to keep on going in this sad, pathetic way I've been living. So instead of, realizing that they need to change, they just project this onto you and they just think, like, God, what, like, an annoying person. Like, how dare they say these things to me? And then get really offended by you. And like a similar kind of thing is like maybe you push people to grow in a way that other people in their life have never really done for them before. Like maybe because you actually believe in people's potential and you believe in the potential of every person on this planet, that you really see the best in people, but this also, spurs them into action, right? So if someone like that doesn't really have people in their corner who believe in them, they might just kind of talk about them like, it's cool that you're kind of into art or whatever, but like it's just a pipe dream, right? Like you're never really going to quit your day job. You're never really going to make this happen. But you might come in and say like, no, like you do have creative potential. You have a lot of talent. You have a lot of good ideas. You should really be executing these. And this could trigger someone because now it's like they have to actually take action. And they might feel like if they don't live up to the standard of this expectation that you've placed onto them, that they might be disappointing you in some way. But what they don't realize is it's not an expectation. It's actually the fact that you're just trying to see the light in people, see the good in people, so that you can bring out their best. It's not that you'll be disappointed if they don't live up to the best. It's just that you have to see that potential in them for them to even recognize it in themselves, right? When you're in an environment where no one believes in you, it's so hard to like break out of that and actually grow and move past it. And along the same lines, maybe sometimes people are caught in these schemas of stories they've been told that just are not true at all, but it's so easy to agree with, like excuses for why they can't be an artist. Like one I hear all the time is like, I can't be an artist because I'm a white male and our society hates white males, right? And it's so easy for them to be validated in that idea, and they probably have been validated a lot of times in the past where everyone around them goes like, yeah, that really sucks, like society, whatever. But like if you're that one person who comes in and says like, honestly, no. There are a lot of successful white male artists in this world. Like, it's really just about the fact that you haven't put in the hours and the effort and, actually tried to make something. Like, you're just sitting here doing absolutely nothing with your time, complaining about how the world is holding you back. Like, that's just not true at all. And so obviously this is going to trigger someone because they're used to hearing that validation. Or maybe people are stuck in the schema of this, like, me versus them mentality when it comes to the arts or fame, celebrity, that sort of thing. Where it's like, I am like a normal person, right? I'm a normal person on the bus, whatever, like all these normal people around me. And then there's them. There's like the celebrity class. They're out there on the TV screens, on the talk shows, getting their ideas and works out there. And I'm just sitting here, little old me. And this is who we are, right? We're just the little people. We're just the sheep. And those people are the culture creators. And there's this hierarchy of like, I'm never going to be them. It's the relationship that I'll have to these people is always, I'm the viewer, I'm the consumer, they're the creator, they're the people who are creating culture, creating content, beaming it down to me, right? And so if you're the person who breaks someone out of that mentality and says like, no, those are just regular people. We could do that. We could be them. If we put in the work, if we put in the hours and, really played our cards right, we could be in the same spot that they are. That is scary to people. That terrifies people because it's this realization that like, nothing's holding you back except for yourself. And it's really just about realizing yourself if you want to get to this point. But that is actually terrifying to people who've just been holding themselves back for so long. And similarly, maybe people have these schemas about like being time bound when it comes to being a good artist or, being going down in history, right? It's like, oh, all these historical figures, they were there at the right place at the right time, and it's just not possible for us to do anymore. In 2025, you can't be like these great artists. You can't be like Da Vinci. You can't be like, Frida Kahlo, whoever inspires you. Like, they were there at the right time, but I could just never be that. But no, you come in and you say like, no, in 500 years or in 100 years, whatever, like, we're going to be in the history books just like they were because we're going to make our mark and we're going to be discovered by historians, by cultural critics. Like, it's just a matter of making the work and putting it out there. And there's nothing like about these people that made them so completely special. Like, it wasn't like they just had this like God-given gift and like, or just like luck. Like, certainly those played in as a factor, but very certainly, objectively true is that these people had huge bodies of work to be discovered, right? It's about creating the work. Like, it wasn't just because they had a good personality that they're a famous artist and like, they just had 5 paintings, but they were just such an intriguing, lucky person that they went down in history. Like, no, it's because they put in the work. And like, this is the most triggering thing to people because it actually makes them realize like, okay, I'm not going to just be handed everything in life, right? I actually have to work for it. And like this can be so triggering to people because like putting in the effort really is hard, and people get used to being completely lazy. And like you'll notice this in people who supposedly glorify like contributing to society, but when it comes to like actually making something of themselves, right, and not just feeding the capitalist machine, like that scares them. Because to move from being a little rat in the maze or being a sheep in the crowd, and to like actually putting your foot down and saying like this is who I am, this is the art I'm making, this is really scary to people. Well, let's draw a few cards on this topic and see what comes out. Because, you know, obviously it's not fun to have this dynamic with people where it almost can feel adversarial sometimes, where you're just asserting your truth and your opinions, and, you know, maybe your personality plays a part in this, of course, but it's just hard when people kind of reject it and reject you by extension because they're just not ready to break out of this little mental box that they've created for themselves. All right, we've got cake. Okay, so I get the sense that, like, what triggers you about other people is that you are getting your cake, right? Like, there is just this dynamic where they're just, like, have this entitlement where it's like, why do you get to enjoy your life so much? Like, what are you so happy about? Seriously, don't you know that life sucks? Don't you know that it's not all sunshines and rainbows and cake? Don't you know that life is actually suffering and pain? And you refuse to acknowledge this. You say like, no, you know what? I love my life. Like, the world is a beautiful place. And honestly, I'm gonna make the best of it. And I'm not gonna sit here wallowing in the mud. I'm gonna go bake my own damn cake so that I can have a nice little dessert for myself. Alright, then we've got curtain. So I get the sense you're just someone who wants to be on stage. You like the attention. And people will criticize you for this, of course. You know, like, the common insult, attention whore, right? What's wrong with wanting attention, okay? This is a very strong shadow projection that people have repressed because their parents didn't pay attention to them as a child, right? Their parents were doing whatever, and they were just, like, sitting there, you know, pulling at mommy's shirt sleeves, and, you know, she wanted nothing to do with them. And, you know, I think maybe a lot of us can relate to this, is you just didn't really feel that, like, wanted or cared for. So you kind of internalize the fact that wanting attention is bad. I should make myself small. I should make myself not noticed. Like, I should only talk when spoken to. And because you have come out and said, like, you know what? No, I have things to say. I have things to share with the world. I want to be on stage. I do want to be the center of attention sometimes because I think that I have a good point to make, and I think that I could entertain people. And I think that this can be really triggering to people sometimes because they just don't understand that because they haven't gotten to that point for themselves. They don't want to be seen, and they can't imagine someone else wanting to be seen except for reasons of feeding the ego, when really you're not doing it just out of ego reasons. Certainly that plays a part, but you're also doing it because you want to help other people. And sometimes, you know, you need to have the spotlight shone on you in order for you to express the ideas that are going to help other people. All right, projector. So again, this is like people are projecting things onto you that are not necessarily within yourself, but it's these dark things within them. And so when you're acting from like a place of light and honesty and truth, because people see a shadow in you, they're assuming the worst, right? Like I just mentioned with this curtain card, is like, you know, you might be just going on stage because you think, you know, I want to inspire other people. And this is truly where you're acting from. But when people are projecting, they see it as like, and you want to go on stage, it's because you want sexual attention for your looks, or it's because, you know, you just want, you think that you're right about everything, and you want people just to hear what you have to say. And it's like, no, like, that's actually genuinely not where I'm acting from. Like, I'm not trying to just make everything about me. Like, if anything, I'm trying to turn it back on other people and show them through my genuine expression of self and my confidence that you could do the same. Alright, let's pull a couple more cards here. Wig. Okay, so I get the sense that, like, maybe what triggers you about other people is also the fact that you're, like, a little bit of a shapeshifter. Is that you're not always just pinned down to a certain environment, right? Like, a lot of times people will just kind of be so influenced by other people and just like what's going on around them, and like specifically like a community or a group that they're part of, right? they don't really have the ability to go into a new setting and kind of change things up, right? Because maybe they have this established friend group, or, you know, maybe people, coworkers, or that sort of thing, where you always have to act a certain way to be accepted as part of the in-group. And if you act in a way that is in accordance with the group is going to turn against you, and that's not too fun. But now think about a situation where you're going into a room that's not this group you're familiar with, right? It's maybe a group of artists that you really admire, or maybe professionals who are really advanced in their career, or just like the general public that you're trying to make an impression on with yourself as an artist. And so it requires you to kind of put on a little bit of a wig in a way. It's like, okay, if I'm talking to these people that I kind of want to impress or kind of get on my good side, like maybe I just need to step it up a little bit and be a little more professional, be a little more confident, or I need to know how to sell myself as an artist. And, you know, maybe with my friends, I'm kind of shooting the shit and I'm kind of being like, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing, whatever. But when I go into this room with people that I really respect, I'm going to say like, this is me, this is what I'm doing with my life. And not everyone has the capability of doing this, just, you know, like, I mean, everyone has the capability, they just don't have this skill because they haven't consciously built this skill, is that they've become very insecure. They see you talking about yourself in this way that is like, you know, maybe a little bit more professional, and it makes them kind of recoil because they can't imagine doing that. They think like, what is this poser? What is this phony? Like, what are you putting on this act for? And it's like, no, I'm participating in this game that I need to play, and I'm putting on the wig for this period of time so that I can get what I need to out of the situation. All right, let's draw one more card on why your energy triggers other people. Fish. Okay, so I get the sense that the reason your energy triggers other people is because you do put the bait out there. And it's like, it's almost like you are not always direct with, like, directing a comment at someone, where like maybe you do see their shadow, maybe you do understand where they have some cognitive dissonance, but the thing is, if you point it out too directly, like that is like gonna go beyond triggering someone, and it's gonna just like start a fight, like a full-blown fight of like, why are you attacking me, you know? So maybe you kind of like are a little bit more subtle about it, and like maybe you talk in allusions or symbolisms a little bit, or you try and point out parallel situations where you can kind of see, okay, well, you don't approve of this in that situation. It's interesting that you have the strong conviction that this action is wrong, because, you know, and the implication being maybe you don't say this part out loud, but it's you do the same thing, right? And people can kind of tell, right? You know, that's kind of like this little back and forth of like, huh, I never really thought of that, and now I have to reflect on myself. But it's not necessarily always like that they're taking it as like you're personally attacking them. But it does cause them to have this realization. And so why this energy can be really triggering to people is, you know, even if someone genuinely likes you, they really have this fond warmth for you, they want to be your friend, like, when they get triggered in this way of like having these hard conversations with you that make them realize things about themselves, like this kind of freaks them out a little. And so in a sense, it's almost like being close to you can be really difficult because it just makes them realize so much of this cognitive dissonance that, you know, other people would validate to them or kind of let slide, whereas you like really catch it. And so it brings this intensity to the dynamic where like you're not just going to let someone be the worst version of themselves and dwell in their shadow. Like you are actually going to push someone to work on themselves and like be the best version of themselves, which is scary and difficult. And, you know, if someone's a little bit lazy or, you know, a little bit self-hating, it's going to create this feeling that they can't get close to you because you're kind of have this demand for them to be the best version of themselves. And that is why your energy is triggering to other people. Well, I hope this video helped you a little bit or was somewhat entertaining to watch. It's a lot of fun to do as always. I always love to share my messages with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.